fever this quarter too. So.
What about summer?
Summer. The nice thing about summer is I think I only have to be here like 2 days a week.
So you're doing the online or?
So they're doing it hybrid.
Okay.
So what I will do, and I'm still working on that because I have to figure out what to do with the day that you're not in class. So I think I'm going to edit some of my videos.
Here's my Jedi Meister. Nothing.
And I will put up some questions to get ready, and then we'll just use the days in class to do things.
So at least you'll have half the summer off.
Yeah. It will be. It's nice in a way. And I actually would only have to come in one day, but I'll probably come in one day for office hours. And I need to clean my office because they moved me into it when I was gone one day, and I have no idea where anything is. I used to know where all my stuff was, even but I have no idea where anything is. So I need to tear apart all those boxes and figure out what's in them and set them up. But I don't have the ambition to do that now. All right, so let's go into full screen mode. I will magnify a bit. Okay. And let's minimize this. All right, so I'm not going to start a new project. What I'm doing is I'm going to open the old project, which for me is the book review spring 18, right? And from now on, you should be opening your own project too. And for this one, as I said, I don't think you can follow along and do community assisted exactly the same time I'm doing this because there's some differences. There's some significant differences between how you do the two. I will go over what those differences are. But I'm going to show you the gist of it with this book review. The book review one's a little simpler. And the main thing that's simpler is that in the book review, the reviewer, where we're going to register the reviewer, is a single table, all the information. In Community Assist is 3 tables. There's a table for the main information about the person. There's a table for the addresses, and there's a table for the contact information. So there's 3, although I might have changed the contact information. I might have reduced it to 2 tables for you guys. I'll have to look. So one of the things that we'll do for the community assist is we'll create a new model that combines the 2 things, or 3 things. I'm not sure which it needs. But other than that model, things are pretty similar. So we'll talk about that. So let's go to the Solution Explorer here. It's still spinning though. I just killed it. Hopefully it'll come back. There it goes. All right, so this is what we did last time, pretty much. You guys remember so the 2 things that we have done. Is this big enough? I could go up to 200% for this over here. Yeah. Okay. I need to find better ways to do this than zooming, but all right. That better? All right, so the things that we've done so far. We ran a controller that we did with the wizard, right? We did business rules. So that's one of the first things we did. We added the model. We ran a controller on that with the wizard. Then the next thing we did is we modified the home controller, right? So we modified an existing controller. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new controller from scratch for registration. So I am going to go up to controllers, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add, and what I want to add is a controller. All All right, and then we are going to do an empty controller. So we're going to build a controller from scratch this time. Sounds scary, but it's not really. It's we don't have a name for it here, so it will actually give it a name. As I said, I hate Zoom, so I'm going to add it. If I can get to the add button, I will add it. Now, we don't want to have it as default controller. This is going to be registration, so you can name it register controller if you want. Or, I would not name it person controller because there's a person class in there, but so I'm going to call it register controller. I'm going to do add. And then I might zoom down a little bit because the code pages are quite large. And it shouldn't take yours as long as mine. Mine seems to take forever. Yeah, it should only take a second. It should give you a little empty control. Has an index method. There it is. So a couple things I'm going to do before I do the controller. I want to show you in the Solution Explorer that we now have a folder under Views that's named Register as well. All right, so when we created the register controller, it created a folder to store the views. Okay, so let me zoom down again. I have to find my zoomer though. Okay, let me zoom down again. How big is this? Is this big enough to see from the back? Is that big enough, or you need it up a little more? You're okay with that, or how is it from you're the furthest back? You're okay? All right. It moves better if it's not zoomed, but so we have an index, action result index, and it's going to return the view. That's fine. We can leave an index on there, right? But I'm going to make the index to be an actual registration form, and you could rename it if you want. It doesn't have to be indexed, but whatever you name this action result is what the form, the view has to be named. Right, so if I leave this as index, and we have to have a view named index. Does that make sense? No questions? Okay. So the other thing I'm going to do, which we generally have to do up here, is we want to say using system, actually not system, using book review, whatever you named your thing, book review spring 18 dot models. Right, so we need a reference to the models. I don't know why it doesn't give you a reference to the models right off. Why it doesn't just give you that instead of having to add it. Okay, I am going to, although I think I only need it, I'm going to do this at the class level, although I think I only need it at one of the methods. I am going to do book review spring, book review DB entities. Right, that is our reference to the built-in, the models that we did with the entity wizard. I'm going to just call it DB because it's easy and it's easy to type that later. Equals new. And it should pop up, yeah, book review DB entities. Parentheses, semicolon. So in the C# world, what you're doing here, and this is true in the Java world, in C world, etc., is we are declaring a new instance of book review DB entities class. And it'll give us access to all the things that are there. It's new because it has to be reserved a spot for it in memory. You don't get this with like Python because it does it line by line. It doesn't reserve places. It doesn't compile. But in a compiling language where it's all done at once, the new is a keyword to tell it to set aside space for this objects. So, and we need that because we need to have access to the objects. And you will probably need this. You will need it in Community Assist 2 with the Community Assist, because one of the things that's in there is the stored procedure, which we're going to use to do things. Now I'm going to make another action. We need an empty action result index. We need something that can load the form without any encumbrance, right? It's just going to load the form, whatever that is, to view. But we also need something to take the input once we press enter on the form or submit. So there's a couple of things that'll differentiate this. One of them is this is called a compiler directive, but it's HTTP post. My mouse is still floating. The other thing that is usually a part of this, and I think you could probably get rid of this, but is validate anti-forgery token. I think, though I haven't confirmed this 100%, that what the validate anti-forgery token, and there's going to be one on the form itself, it does it so that you are not allowed to type certain characters, like @ signs and greater thans, and there are certain things that will be part of a typical script. It's to prevent attacks, right? So the forms will kind of exclude certain kinds of input, which is a real pain if you need that kind of input. But generally it'll avoid that. They won't allow that. The post you need, all right, so, and this is just post. You guys done other web forms, so you can have post or get. There's actually an HTTP get if you would rather do the get. The get puts the search string up in the URL. The post does not. So I am going to do public lowercase p action result and it's going to be index again, but it's going to take some values here. I'm going to do the curly braces before I do those. And this may be a little bit weird. Let's see if I can remember the exact syntax. I think it's square brackets, bind, include, and I think it's with a capital I. And what I want to include here are all the fields that go with this class. And the class that we want is reviewer, because we're registering reviewers. Over here, I'm kind of opening this up to see what's in the reviewer. So we need, and I need to know, I don't know if I can see it over here. I'm just trying to remember the sequence of things that I need. So stored procedures. I'll open this if, I'll zoom it if I get what I want. It's taking forever. I don't want to take forever doing this. So this is a new reviewer. So let me zoom up, I'll show you.
Oh, stored procedure.
This is a stored procedure that we included in the binding. So it takes some arguments, and this is what we're going to do. We need their username, first name, last name, email, and password. Except their plain password. So those are the fields that we basically need to take in. Which I don't think, we may actually have to make a class kind of like the other one. We got, no, it has a plain password in the model, which it does not have in Community Assist. So I'll show you, as I said, the differences there. So I need to include all of these fields because basically we're going to use this stored procedure, and I need to pass it these things in this order. All right. When you do Community Assist, there's a stored procedure. I think it's called register, USP register, and it will have a list of the fields that you need and what order to pass them in. And I'll show you, as I said, in a moment how to do that. So I need username, first name, last name, email, and plain password. One of the reasons why we're using the stored procedure is it does things like it hashes their password, right? It does the hash. It does some other things too. So in the class, is it reviewer first name? Yeah, reviewer first name, reviewer username. These have to match the fields. Let me unzoom because this really makes it a pain. Reviewer first name. It doesn't actually matter what order you do these. It does matter that you spell things right. I'm going to break this. You don't have to. This is just to keep it on here. So we got last name. Actually, the username was first. So let's do that up here. Case might be sensitive. Last name, and then we want to do reviewer email. I'm having trouble typing. And reviewer plain password. I did include it in this one, but not in, as I said, in the Community Assist. But you will need a password. But I actually, I'll show you when we get there. So, and what I want to do this is reviewer, which is a built-in class. Is that right? Oh, this needs to have the parentheses inside the. There it goes. We need to give this a local name. The reviewer is the name of the class. We need to give it a. Actually, I'm just going to make it R. Okay. All right, so what we've got here, this bind is going to bind all these fields, and these are fields coming in from the form that map to the fields in the class. It's going to bind all of those into a new version, new instance of a class of reviewer, which I'm calling R just because it's easier. Later, you'll see when we do the stored procedure, it's nicer to say R dot than it is to say reviewer dot because it's just less typing. Does that make sense at all? These are the fields of the class, but they're also what's going to be passed in from the form that we're going to make. We're going to pass these things in through the form. There will be a text box for each of these. And then we'll make a new instance of a class from those. And then down here, we'll pass them in to we will pass them into the stored procedure. I'm going to declare an int. I'm not sure if I want to call it result. The reason is, well, let's call it result. I'll think of a different name for the other view. So the reason I'm doing this is that stored procedures in SQL Server, at least, if they succeed, they return 1. If they fail, they return -1. So, and I'm going to do, so then I'm going to DB, right? DB was our instance. It gives us a view of all the things that are in there. There's DB, there's save changes, which you could do if it was just straight. But it in the list, I guess I need to magnify that. So let me do the dot again. Notice down here at the bottom of this, it has the 2 stored procedures. It has the new reviewer and it has the login. Okay, so we can choose the new reviewer. And when I do the little parentheses there, it actually shows me the list of what needs to go in the order that it needs to go in. So a couple of things about this. Everything in the list has to be there, and it has to be in the right order. One of the drawbacks of a stored procedure like this is you basically just have to pass things in the order that it asks them, and you can't leave anything out. With the person one, the one from Community Assist, it's a longer list. So, and it has to be. You can't really. So there are things you can do down here if you wanted to, like if you needed to generate a date or you needed to do some things, you could do that here. You wouldn't have to pass that in from the form, and then if they were required, you could pass them in there. So generally, though, the fields that go in here should be in the list up here. So I'm going to do R dot, because R is our thing, right? So I want to do R dot username. So I need to go down here, comma, R dot first name. Did do first name, last name. Yep. Okay. So we want to do first name, which is way up here. I use the IntelliSense so I don't type it wrong. R dot email, right? Last name. Down here. This one you can break easily. So it's not a string, so you can break it wherever. So then it's email, right? Which I guess is up here. And then R dot plain password. Now notice it has a hashed password, has a reviewer key, and it has a reviewer key code. We don't need any of those things. They're provided by the stored procedure. But we do need the plain password. Yeah.
So go back on the reviewer R.
Yeah.
Where did you get the word reviewer? If we were to do it with R.
So the word reviewer here is a class in the it's a class from the entities. It's one of the table names. Now, in the community assist, as I said, there is no table name that corresponds exactly to what you want, so we're going to add our own class.
Which class is it? Community assist, do you remember?
What in? So in community assist, there's 3 classes, and you can't pass 3 classes in. So what I did, and it's in the assignment, I think, is we created a new person class. And the new person class contains the fields from person, person address, possibly contact. I don't remember if I changed that to just 2 classes. What?
It's just person and person address.
Just person and person address. Okay. I think I changed it to make it a little simpler. So there you would do a new person instead of reviewer. But reviewer, the reason why it's teal is it's an existing class in models. Right? If it wasn't an existing class, if I spelled it wrong or something, it wouldn't be in teal. Does that make sense? And I'm back on, this is the reviewer class, which I didn't mean to go to. But let's see, let's go back to register controller. The index is still underlined because we haven't returned anything. I'm going to zoom down again. And I'll comment this a little. This is a little complicated, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't like the fact you define, you can't break up, it's just one string. So.
Yeah, but if you press enter, you can concatenate the string.
Yeah.
This one might fail though. I think the string could fail.
You have a R that's underlined.
No, my R isn't underlined. Where?
The second row.
Oh, because same thing. Breaking the line doesn't free you from needing a comma.
That's the problem, is you have to have the comment inside the string quotes in 23 and 24.
Right, which I did
Right.
do. So, and then it wasn't here before, but I did add it. Okay, so we got that. That actually should be fine. I am going to make another class in model. This is a little weird. But it's actually really useful. So I'm going to go to model, models. I'm going to right click. I'm going to add class. So class is at the bottom. If you don't have it, you can do new item. And this class is going to be really simple.
Running class, we're going to do that.
Yeah, did it give me a message box to name the class? Yeah, there we go. Actually, it didn't. It just went to class 1 here. So I'm going to name it message. I'm just going to make a message class so that we can pass a message to a form through the class. And the form will be, did this, insert fail or succeed? So I'm going to add a message class. There are other ways to do this, but this is actually one of the easiest. The message class is only going to have, so let me zoom down again. It's only going to have a couple, oops, I didn't mean to kill that. Couple things. It's actually only going to have one field, which is public string, and I'm just going to call it message text, and set get. Okay. Now, you can, if you want, I don't want to confuse things too much. You could add a constructor, so you could just do message and then pass it. You don't want the constructor?
You want to be lazy, right?
If you have a...
No, I want to be right.
Well, the constructor isn't necessary, but it can take... so you have to have an empty constructor. Actually, can I just do... Yeah, I don't want to necessarily have that. You have to have an empty constructor. It's required in these classes. And then I'm going to do public message, and it's going to take a string which will be assigned to message text. This just makes it so that when we initialize the class, we can pass the message. We don't have to do it in 2 steps. Do you guys know what a constructor is? Python doesn't have a real constructor. It's sort of.
Yeah, it's cheap.
It's, what do they call it? The name of the
Yeah.
Yeah. In most of the C-based languages, the constructor always has the same name as the class, and it has no return type. And what a constructor does is it initializes the values in the class. And you can have multiple constructors as long as they have different signatures. Like this one is empty and this one has a string. You know, as long as they differentiate, then you can initialize the class in a variety of ways. That's actually part of what they call, not that you care, polymorphism. It's a object-oriented concept because it allows you this to be initialized in multiple ways. The idea of polymorphism is that one class or one object can be used in a lot of different ways depending on the context. This will work perfectly fine without these, right? If you just have this, it just means you have to do it in 2 steps. You have to declare the class, and then you have to accept the message. But the reason we're doing this, you guys need a minute here, or you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd have an error on it or something? Yeah, let me see. That would mean an error.
Once we got to this point, we got to make that class.
Yeah.
Not
Go back on that. Just do it good.
And then inside of that, like the sign is really
Under the version
inside of it, it
machine
says
is must function then it's right. Function and
I can see it. Well, I mean, I didn't. There was
free.
I could probably bump the font one more.
Oh, no, it's
Okay.
readable. I just.
And the price.
All right, so when I go back to the register controller, the reason why I made this so I'm going to do an if result not equal -1, so it means it's good. Then I am going to say, actually, I'm probably going to not use the constructor anyway. Well, maybe. No, I'm not going to use the constructor. I'm going to just declare message right here. So I'm using the empty constructor, even though I added the other constructor. There are times when it'll be useful, but I'm going to say that m.messageText is equal to welcome, and I'm going to do a plus, and I'm going to use their username. That should be a plus, not a. So plus is concatenating. So r dot reviewer username. I suppose we could use their first name or something too. Would you rather use their first name or their username? Username. So we've created a message text that'll just say welcome and do that. And then if that's not the case, right? So I'll just do an else. And I'll do the curly braces. Curly braces are not strictly necessary here because we've only got one thing. I'm going to say m.message text equals whatever we want. Some kind of error message. Something went horribly wrong. You can say whatever. Probably you would want to say something more like the registration failed, or something more technical than this. You could even, although we're not going to go there, you could even do a error message at this point, pass an error message back. You'd have to do a try catch in here and do some other things to get the error message, but you could. It also is possible that if something truly does go horribly wrong, that you won't get to that message anyway because the whole thing will crash because we're not doing a try catch. We might come back and add those things later. So we need to return a view. So I'm going to say return view, but I want to return, I'm going to create a view that is basically just for the message. So once you've registered, it goes to a new view and displays the message. And that view, I usually name it result. What would be another name for it? I probably could still call it result. It's just, I hate naming two things the same. Well, it's not really login. We will do login next week.
Outcome is no, you're welcome.
Well, tell you what, let's just call it result. Now, one of the things this result is going to have to take a message, so I'm going to do comma m, right? Because m is the message. Now, this won't do anything except possibly throw an error because we don't have a method for the result. Does that make sense? Well, so inside of here, inside of this controller, in order for a view to work, you have to have a method for it. All right. So I'm going to create a new method called public action result. So public action result, and it's going to take a message object as its, and it's going to then just return view with, so we need to name this, and it will return the view with the message. Yeah, I'm going to move it up. So one of the things to know is that you cannot have a view that doesn't have a method in the controller. Does that make sense? Every view has a method in the controller, even if it's doing nothing. This one is, it's taking in a message object, and when it returns it to the view, it will return the message object with it. What that means is we'll have access to the message in the view. So, do you want me to walk through that? That's our whole controller. And your controller will be very similar. It's just a little more complicated on what class you're taking in. So you'll have an empty index, right? This is actually so that the form returns before you press any buttons or anything. So there will be an empty index. You do have to make a reference. For you, it'll be community assist entities, right? Community assist 2017 entities. Down here, this is the index again, but it's after a post. It's after the button's been pushed. So the post has an anti-forgery thing. We are taking in the values from the fields and assigning them to fields. How does it assign those? When you do the form, you'll see that they are linked directly to a particular field. Each text box is linked to a particular field, and those fields will map to these. Okay, so then this is just declaring the message so it's available. We are using a stored procedure. This isn't necessarily typical, but because of the way I hashed passwords and things, I didn't want to have to write all that code, which would have been a lot of code. It's also less reliable when you do it in C# than when you do it at SQL level in terms of consistency, because a difference in the length of a string can make a difference in the hash. If the database has a different length than the hash in the C#, it won't. The login won't work. So if all the hashing is done at the database, it makes everything consistent. And that's why we're using a stored procedure, because all the hashing is done. We pass in those fields to the stored procedure. It does all the work, like it actually inserts the people into the table, does the hashing, does everything it needs to be done. If it succeeds, it'll return 1. If it fails, it'll return -1. So if it's not a -1, we're going to say welcome. Otherwise, we're going to say something went horribly wrong. We're going to return a view, but we're not returning this view. We're returning the result, and we're passing it the message. And that's what this is for, is so that there's a result view that takes a message. Does that all make sense? Yeah. No. So this is, although we're not writing a lot of code, this is what I would consider like intermediate C#. You know, we're not writing tons of code, but the concepts are building on things that you guys didn't get. So I understand if it's a little bit confusing. That's why I'm trying to explain it over and over again. But if you have questions, ask. So let's go back to your message class, which may still be up. It's actually just right here. You need an empty constructor as well. So do public message above this one. Yeah. So just write public message. Just do open and close with nothing in it, and then do an open and close curly braces with nothing in them. That's all you need. And then when you go back, it should be fine.
So, when we
Register control that's due on, like, I ran this, I didn't get an error.
So there's nothing to run here.
Oh, okay. That would be.
So a couple of things. If you run this at this point, it may not give you any errors, but it won't do anything because we don't have the views. There's nothing to show.
But it's good to do a build though, right?
It wouldn't hurt to build it. And running it does build it, or you can just click on build and do build. What build will do is it should tell you if there's any compile errors, but generally you see those anyway because those are your little red squiggly lines. Yeah, just build solution. Okay. It looks like it's building all right. If you don't get a bunch of errors down here, then you're fine.
Do you have any questions, Rand?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'll register.
See? The version, this is not a VM base.
There actually is
Version,
a
basic version.
in the assignment I gave you the class.
Yeah, I'll try it again. You made the call.
Yeah.
We need to always get that. Think about it.
Yeah, I'll show you that.
A simple.
Yeah, I will show you that. It actually gave it to
Everything's
everything
under.
assigned.
How do we?
You got
do
30
it,
plus files when you
do
do
it?
a fresh
That
solution,
like
then you're adding a database that makes it.
find all the attribute into one.
Right, and you can do that. If you've made the class, you can bind it to the class you made.
Oh,
So you can bind it to new person just fine. I mean, it'll work. I'll show you. So here's Bill. Here's Bill. Okay. Everybody ready for forms? Or no? As I said, this is complicated, so I will talk through it as many times as you guys need. I mean, the code is not complicated, but the concepts behind why you would be writing this particular code is a bit complicated. So if you have questions, we'll talk through it again in a bit, I guess. So let's do.
The video is you're recording.
I am recording this.
I can't talk right now.
I am recording. All right. So notice that we down here under register
In views.
in views. So I'm going 200, so it's a little clearer. So we have a folder. There's nothing in this folder yet. We're going to add, we're actually only going to add one form. We're going to add the index, and then we're going to add the result form down under shared. Because there's a lot of other times when we were going to want to pass a message to say that we succeeded, like logins. There's some other things that we might do where we want to say that, yes, we've, you've succeeded at doing this, so let's pass. So if you put it under shared, it's available to everything. You don't have to make a shared for every folder. But we do need to make an index under register. So if I right-click on register, I want to add, and what I want to add is a view. And in the view, so let me lower this. The view has to be named index. You do not have a choice about that if you want it to work. Everything else we're just going to do empty without model. So I'm just going to add this. And what it gives us is this, right? So not much. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add model. And then this is the name of your assignment. So mine is book review spring 18. Dot models. Dot, and in this case it'll be reviewer. Now when you do the other one, it would be the class you make, the new person class, which I'll show you, as I said, when we're done here. So that gives us access to the reviewer model. One of the things that I'm going to do, which you might find a bit weird, is I'm going to go home. Well, actually not home. I'm going to go to the books. Remember when we ran the wizard? I'm going to do the create. And the reason I'm going to do this, and let me zoom down. If you did this, when we did the wizard thing with the...
Sorry, what file did you go to just now? Sorry.
So I went to the one we created in with the wizard, with the controller wizard, the one that created all the views. One of the views is called create.
In the home or the...
No, it's in books.
Books, okay.
So let me go back. I'll zoom up again. So under, not the controllers, under views, books. Open, so just open the little thing there. And what we want is to create. And the reason we want to create is that it has a form like what we want. One of the reasons why we did those was so that we could basically kind of steal this form. And you could eliminate it all later. You could write all of this if you want, but I'm going to copy and paste it. All right, so just to kind of walk through it, there's this is called Razor. Again, it's a C# scripting language. It says using HTML begin form. So that's a built-in object that says that we're using a form. It has a curly brace here. It does that anti-forgery token that we saw in the controller. This is just HTML at this point, but then it begins. These are the class. These are the text boxes, basically. Notice the class equals form group. That's from Bootstrap. The classes are from Bootstrap. It makes the form look really nice. You know, and basically down here we have the model, the book title, and then we have the attributes. There's all of this, and you can type it in, and the IntelliSense would lead you there, but it's a real pain in the butt to do. Which is why I am just going to copy from HTML begin form all the way down to the end. And I think you need these scripts because I think they process the post, but all the way down to the bottom of this, from the begin form all the way down. I've selected it. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to my empty index here, and I'm going to paste it. And then we're going to change things. This is a little dangerous. In some ways, it might be better to just go through and type it, but it would take us the rest of the morning. So having done this, notice all these things are underlined. Why is that? Anybody ever know? It doesn't belong to our model, right? Those are the things we need to change. So we have the things that we need are the things that are going to go through. So I'm going to do model dot, and I guess I should zoom up so you can see what's in there. Inside the drop-down list are the fields that belong to our model. Reviewer first name, reviewer email, reviewer hash pass. There's things that we're not using, but everything that we're using too. The first one was username. So if I go down here, there's the reviewer username. So I can change that. And I'm going to do that on each of these. I'm just going to, for this first text box, I'm just going to do reviewer username and reviewer username. Everything else can stay the same. Okay. All right, and then the next thing we need is first name, right? So we just want to go in here and change it to first name, reviewer first name. And change that at every, there's 3 places in every one of them. It is case sensitive, which is one of the reasons why I'm just getting them out of the drop-down list, the IntelliSense. Because if you type it wrong, you'll have to come back and retype it. So we got the first name, and then instead of ISBN, we'll need the last name. My mouse is still floating. It's really hard to control. When I'm zoomed, it doesn't move very well. Okay, so we need some more text fields, right? So we don't have quite enough here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from the div class group to the end of that div. I'm going to copy it, press enter, maybe once, give it a paste. And then we can do, so we got reviewer last name, and I'm going to do reviewer first, or email. So I'm just changing each of these to reviewer email. So I said this is easier, but it can be a little confusing. So beyond email, we have, what was plain password? Is that next? Oh, that I left out the R on that one. Is that all that was after this was just the password, plain password? What?
It's review, not reviewer.
Yeah, I think that's a typo on but it's a typo in the database, so we have to go with it. Thank you.
Do we have to fix that on the controller page?
What? Did we do it wrong? Let's look at the controller.
Yeah, just to make sure. I think the string's okay, but when you actually bring in the DB, right, you have to make sure that matches. And so you got review or plain password.
And it should be review plain password.
Right. I know it sounds trivial, but that will cause you debug.
It will. It'll actually,
Yeah.
it'll fail. Okay.
Even though it doesn't have a red line, yeah. And you'll pull your hair out.
Yeah, one of the problems with this is kind of like the old SQL, which they're kind of avoiding, is when you put this in a string, strings don't debug. So I changed it to review username there. Let's look at our index form again, because I think it's done. I mean, it's a pain, right? And instead of an index, you could say, like, this is just a heading. You could say register or something. Same down here. I don't want book. I want something like register. And you can even take that out if you want, because it's just HTML. Or maybe registration form. Okay, so the trick with this, a couple of tricks. So we copied and pasted from the create, which you all should have in your thing for the business rules. I changed the data. You need to have a text form for each, text box for each of the fields that you need to pass through. If you screw up with all these divs and stuff, your form is going to be real wonky. So breaking the units up is useful. I do a space between them to keep it clear in my own mind what's going on. most of the div and the classes are from the setup from Bootstrap. You could, if you wanted to ignore Bootstrap, if you wanted to make your own HTML form, you could, as long as you have these add HTML commands as well. You don't have to do a Bootstrap form. You can do whatever kind of HTML form you want. But you do need to bind those fields to, you know, the fields in the class. All right. We could run this, but we'd have an error if we used it because we have one more thing we have to create, which is the result form. And it can be fairly easy. So let me zoom up. Do you guys have questions on this? I will post all this on GitHub when we're done. And there's a video.
I just got a dumb question. When you do line 1 for the add model, I'm trying to add a comment. What's the comment for that add symbol language?
Actually, if you want to do a comment in here, so there's a couple of things. If you're doing it inside, I think there is a add comment kind of thing. If you're doing it outside, it's just an HTML comment.
Right. Yeah. Or if it's a C#, it's just a // But how you do it within the add?
I think. Well, let's look. I want the IntelliSense.
Come on, comment.
No comment. I'll look. I know there's a way to do a comment in there.
What's the language again for the add? Is that?
It's called Razor.
Razor, that's it.
Actually, they're green. I wonder if those will work just fine.
Okay.
I don't know.
But see, I was trying to do it on the line 1, and it was causing an error on the reviewer.
Yeah, you can't. Well, you might be able to do it over here.
Yeah, so if you do that, yeah, at least for me, I was making a red line. So now,
Yeah,
see,
now it does. Partially, this line needs to be the very top. Needs to be the first line,
Right?
Because it's what tells the server that what's going on.
So after that, you can put a comment. But I see.
I mean,
there's restrictions on the
you could do something like this right after. And that shouldn't matter to anything. All right. So let's do our last view. And for this, I'm going to go down to views, right? But under shared. And I'm going to add a view. And I'm going to call it result. It has to have the same name as that. All right. So its result is the name of the view. It's going to be under shared. I'm going to add it. We are going to add a model up here. And it is the name of your assignment, dot models, dot message. And I'm just going to do some p tags. I'm going to do at HTML, which should have a capital H, dot display for, I think. And it'll be model again. And I'm just going to display the message text. So I should put the message text in the p tags. That's our whole result form. You could do more if you want. But. So we made a reference to message. And then in the p tags, just that paragraph tags, I did add HTML display for. Remember when we did the tables, we did display for, puts the data out there. For the model is message. Use the lambda model.message text. So what we're going to display is the message text between two p tags. And that's it for the thing. And we should be able to run all of this, but I'm going to start back at our index. And there'll be one last thing, and then I'll show you some things. So this is our index that we did, right? It's our form. I'm going to minus down. All right, so I'm going to run.
What about the layout?
Well, I'll do that after. So under shared, there should be, there's the result one and then this. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to add a new reviewer. See if it goes to the result page. Hopefully it'll run here in a moment.
When I run it, it actually objects to the fact that I called it result.
That's a possibility. Remember, I was worried about the name. Did you, when you set past to the review result, did you put it in quotes? Let's see if I get that complaint.
The resource cannot be found.
Yeah, so and it's because it's /shared /result.
Let's see what mine does, and then I can come troubleshoot. Because if I have the same error, that's one reason I haven't added anything yet. Everybody's getting that error?
No, I'm getting the.
You're getting the form. It should work, but I'll look. And he did the result form under shared, right? If it doesn't, I'll come fix. We'll do some editing. Come on, just give it to me or fail. Why is mine so slow? I almost think there's a storage. There's not a storage. I think there's a virtual machine.
Oh, does it need to be an edge, not Chrome?
No, it should work in anything.
I got it.
Oh. But this is so slow. If it doesn't come up in just a second, I may kill it and then build it and then run it again. There it goes. So mine worked this far. But it took it forever to render that. Where's your, let's look at your result.
Yeah.
Kill that and kill itself.
Okay.
So, what should we control it first? And we've got, public, down to the. So you have.
Okay. All right. You have to be.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. So you have to be. This is the weird thing. You have to be. You gotta select the You have to click on the file. The yellow thing has to be index.chtml. Then you invoke it. If you do results, it's not going to do anything because there's a step we're missing. So.
Use the example you had done. Copy.
Wow.
I got example.
But you notice here the adding is you don't have to register there. So you have to do a hard.
So you did. Well, you have a load, you have a app. You still have the file.
How many have the error on the view?
Right? From a sense.
The view is
Well,
well, I just was
Yeah, you need to get something to copy in the file.
that'd be nice.
Okay. No, I mean, but look.
I don't know if I don't know if I can. I mean, not breaking that.
Well, so if you see what I'm doing, guys, is
You're good.
well, I'm adding things in, like I add these little comments, say, hey, we edited this.
Then load.
Oh, sorry,
We're
that's.
gonna add it.
Yeah, sorry,
What kind of load?
That's, yeah,
So
no,
I
I'm
think
saying notes
when you
here
copied the
with
form, you
edits
left
here.
out a.
So when we take a file and build it, I say, these are the edits we added to the file. And so and I have a little
This is the
notes
only
here.
thing.
Where's that?
Yeah.
So I'm doing little notes as we go here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so
Well, I do wanna,
So what I'm doing is when we build the files, I'll like have like little edits here. It says, hey, this is where we added things. I'm like, this tool doesn't.
When you copy, you
always
just
do this.
cache that.
I don't know why.
So I'm gonna try to fill out my form and then I'll come debug some more. One of the things that, did you run it again?
Yeah, you have to make sure you're on that index. If you're on result, it will fail
Yes.
because we haven't added it.
So I am going to, anybody have a good username?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm in the database already. Does anybody look?
Farge.
What?
Farge.
Farge sounds good. Reviewer first name, Fargo.
Farge, Fargo.
So you say Marge Fargo?
Farge, Farge.
Okay, so the email, I usually just do like,
Yeah, that's at gmail.com.
yeah.
Or that, yeah.
There's nothing in here actually that's checking to validate that it's actually an email. Although you can, if you want the extra stuff, there are ways to add form validations for that. Now, the passwords that I do in Community Assist are always last name, pass. You don't have to do that here, but you do have, because it actually will record. And actually it's just that. It will, when you do in Community Assist, everybody's, plain text password is their last name, pass. You can do different, but you have to remember it because in Community Assist, you won't be able to see the password. So I'm going to click on create, although I might want to change that to submit. So it does that, and then it should take me to results. And it says welcome Farge. So that did actually work. Questions, and there's one other thing I'll show you, and then I'll come debug some more. So that's the message that we passed in, right?
when you go back to
The what?
result, the pool.
Yeah, so that actually worked, but I'm going to check the database.
Yeah.
All right, even killing it takes a while. So I'm going to look under tables reviewers. So I'm going to zoom again. because those things are, I can't really zoom the edges. I wish I could.
Which one? The Server Explorer?
Yeah, so I'm going to go to the Server Explorer. I'm going to go to Tables. If you don't have this connection, don't worry about it. I'm going to do Reviewer. I could just run a thing, but I'm just going to say Show Table Data. And there's Farge Marge. So they're in the database. So it all worked. There's one last thing I want to show you, and then I'll do the rest troubleshooting and show you what differences there are. What I want to do is add what we just added. I want to add it to the menu, and then I'll come around and, as I said, we'll talk about it. So I'm going to go to the Layout under Views, Shared Layout. And I waited to do this until I was fairly sure it was working. So I'm going to add it to the top level menu so that when you go to the home page, it'll be there. I'm going to just do LI.
This is Layout.
This is under Layout under Shared. So I'm going to do an action link. Boy, that mouse just doesn't flow. I'm going to do, this is, I'm going to say register. The file that we want is index. And the folder, what did I name my folder?
Registration form.
Well, the folder's name is register. So it's the same as the other one. If you named it registration, that's what you'd have to put there. This is just the text you want on the menu bar. This is the actual file, the view, and this is the folder the view is in. So if I were to run from here, and then, as I said, I will come around, and then I'll talk a little bit about the differences. So let me just run it from here. And hopefully it won't take 3 hours to load.
The register on the right, that's in the index file, right? For the
Well, the index file is in the register folder.
okay, in the register folder, right? And now it's on the it's found on the top.
Yeah, so it should be there should be a menu item. Again, this doesn't take forever to load. It says register, and when you click it, it should take you to that index page with the register. And then I'll come help with the little errors. Although I do want to spend 2 minutes just talking about the differences. Really, the only difference is that you have to add a class to model. Oh, I got an error. What is it not like? Oh, I forgot the end parentheses. All of that, and I forgot the parentheses. I forgot to add the final parentheses there. I'm going to build, see if that speeds things up.
Oh, you mean the form? Oh, you mean the web page? Oh,
Oh, I see. So I'm starting.
Close that quote on registration. No, not the parentheses quote.
Well, it should be large.
Stop it. Why is that not? I'll go through it.
I built it, it's still taking forever to load. You didn't load it, didn't load it.
Yeah, it's long down. Let me try again. Refresh.
That's why we stopped.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, if you do the data too early.
Yeah, that's what I did.
All right, so this is our main page where we did the category things. You guys have the types. So notice I added register, and when I click on it, it will go to that form. Okay, so a couple of little things about the other assignment, and then I'll do the rest of the time troubleshooting if need be. So I'm going to close that. Yeah, this is, as I said, when you get the hang of it, the code here isn't that much, but the concepts are a little bit, take a little getting used to. So I want to go to, I think I'm still Zoom, so let me unzoom. All I want to show is in the assignment the differences. It's not a lot of difference. So let me bring up the actual canvas. I need to download like Chrome or something on mine. All right, so
But then you have to change the default as well.
the default.
Probably. In the VM.
Oh,
Yeah, because everything's a wedge.
you can choose though from in Visual Studio. It'll give you a drop-down list of all available browsers. So we just did the registration. And don't panic if you don't get it done today, because I will give you Thursday to work on this. So I said we wanted to create a new person class. And I believe if I didn't do it here, person and person address, everything else is pretty much the same. But I did do, let me look and see if maybe I need to add a link, but there might already be a link. Let's look under announcements. You certainly can write your own class, but I think I gave. Oh, maybe I deleted it. Let me look on the blog. So I'm going to go to I'll make a link to it if it's there, because I know I did. I'm going to do new person. So here's the new person class. And what I'm going to do right now is I will do an announcement with a link directly to there. So you should be able to like add a new class to model, name it new person, and just paste this in. Paste it over. So I'm going to, I'll copy the link. And then in, I think it used to be an announcement and I deleted last quarter's announcements.
Okay, so I think it's, but it's actually sounds like you were.
So there should be an announcement in 2 seconds here in Canvas that will link you to the class. So you can write your own, or you can literally just click on this announcement and then copy and paste the class from there. All right, so the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to post this up to GitHub, and then I'll call it registration commit.
Yeah. Because they 970 is one of the primary.
Okay, it's in the, okay, but here it's saying your control is.
Which file?
Okay, that's what.
Highlight.
Okay, so result, lowercase db.
Yeah. Well, so don't. This one isn't the actual assignment. So this one is just. The new person you can put into a new model for in the community assist. I can help you do that in a second if you want.
Whatever the passing value, not here. The place that has those values to register. Yeah. Registry.
No, but that's looks okay. If you go here, it's same thing about here. So review.
Yeah.
So there, I posted up to GitHub. What we did is what we did today is there now. Yeah.
What is?
Yeah. So when they're doing the form, they when she's adding it.
Cannot insert value null into the column. So which column? So we've got new reviewer. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. March. Balance no, nothing in the last one.
Okay. The last name is a problem.
you fill in all the boxes?
Yeah, I did it 7.2 with Mark part.
So let's look at the boxes. So let's look at
Yeah, that always happens.
I was confused.
Highlight,
So we've got reviewer last name, reviewer first name. Well, actually, so it's.
controller, 1970.
It's actually it's up there. Oh, okay, that's actually good. That's actually a good sanity check.
You know what I Oh,
Register.
just the controller.
I tried looking at those lines. They look okay to me.
Username, first name, last name.
Oh.
That may actually be the whole thing.
Make the font bigger. That's the next step.
When you.
No, because that's the last name.
Oh, these strings.
That actually may be the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then again.
Yeah, because it makes sense because it dies after the email. So, yeah.
So it hasn't done anything yet?
Wait, so if we do anything else, let me
I make sure run it again.
just, no,
Could be first things first.
be able to read it.
Have you checked to see if the database?
So, oh, so go too fast. So those you go click on tools,
Yeah.
options,
Oh, so it's on there.
do font and colors. You just change the size. So it's a good size.
So.
So this you be able to see all that's in the comment there, right?
So it says one of these is
Like I said, it doesn't come up on the screen like edit bills. So, yeah, click on register. Yeah, it's just like Mars, yeah.
Yeah, because of the video.
So yes, I think it's because we're in a project. I think that comments would make this quick.
Great.
You're supposed to get a welcome message. Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
One is I need to fill an app and.
Skills have all somewhere. That's good. Yeah.
First, let me the font so it's easy to catch those terms. Now this is where it's breaking. Oh, that's the thing you're. Yeah, hold on. The thing keeps going back, so go on here. Yeah, so click on email. But again.
No.
Okay, email still. All right, so something's still password. No.
No, that would work, so it's just the email. So let's get that.
Control.
Yeah, so, well,
And always
this
good
is.
box, yeah, and index.
Review for the password, that actually.
Okay, review your email.
So let's look your last name.
Oh, I think I see it. It's
Oh, yeah.
misspelled.
It's misspelled.
Yep.
No skills.
I think you're using the.
What the pretty.
Well, those don't matter. But it is a bit sensitive when you're referring to the class. Yeah.
Oh, no, this is the beginning. Wait till you get to later.
Can I see some,
Wait till you get to the,
the app? I'm gonna review the app, the application, the project for my I4RFID. It's a real project. For the school, and the school coordinator now, and do an app for the public schools. And then that's why I need to check with my friend, and I wanna know how to build the confirmation email based on that one.
This one doesn't confirm anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I need, and also I need the logics, you know, and when they sign up volunteer,
Are you doing it with?
if you don't see it, always
yeah, I'm
go on
gonna
the
do it
left-hand
with
side.
NBC.
What server?
I trying to use Azure.
Because I added
Yeah,
two.
but I want to know that I'm trying to look at Azure account. They say free, blah, blah, blah.
But yeah,
but I
changing
still
the font to
have my-
18 is gonna save you a lot of headaches. The big thing too is you want to like put the stuff on GitHub right now so that you can see the differences in the files as you go.
Well, and when it say free start,
Yes.
and when I try to free start account, I still want to need to get my credit card. So I
The
consider
thing is, if you're doing this, if you're running this in
Is
school,
that the TV thing?
Okay, yeah.
So I still have to use my own stuff.
possibly, but you don't want to use DreamHost, you want to drop down.
Or the gym house is going to
DreamHost is a Linux machine.
Yeah.
And it's only got the PHP stuff.
It's gonna be it's
good to know, so I only option can use that.
Well, it's not your only option.
Usually
Free, I mean, it's free.
Yeah, none of it's. So I paid 180 a year anyway.
Oh, for
So
sure.
break down, sure it costs more. I use, but I would not necessarily recommend.
Yeah, every, well, this is. Yeah, you click
I was focusing on, right. Yeah.
Always do a refresh.
So this goes into. That's where you do is you left click on.
John. And I still don't know how to. Because when I write the scope, this one assignment, since I want to change the plan, so I can leave it.
So,
Volunteer.
I saw this, right? Yeah.
You didn't saw that.
I haven't seen this one.
Yeah, that's what I put down. This is the one that I studied.
Maybe you should, do you have this electronic?
Okay, I can resubmit it.
Yeah.
And also create a
Some diagrams.
diagrams, I don't know,
Yeah, well, we can look at that. I just think it's much more complicated than that.
it is. I would like
So, from the very beginning.
Yes, so I can see it better.
All right.
How do I?
So what you want is a brand new project. We could walk through it fairly quickly. Let me kill the video first.
And it's source repos to put on GitHub, right? Just that folder itself will be downward, put on GitHub. Yeah, no zip file.
Once the thing is up, all you have to do is click that little pencil that has a number beside it. And then commit, and then push. I just want to stop this broadcast.